That's right, Carol Danvers at one point managed to become Captain America. This has actually happened in more than one reality, but for this video we're actually going to focus on the version of Carol Cap that comes from the Venomverse. She appears as Captain America in Venomverse War Stories and hails from the same reality as Venom Rocket, Earth 18197. In the story she appears in, Captain America Carol Danvers and Venom Rocket battle it out as Rocket is looking to cash in on a bounty for the Kree, who basically want Carol Danvers. Venom Rocket and Captain America seem pretty evenly matched here, but in the end, Rocket does not manage to capture Carol, and Carol seemingly ends up the victor of this match, though undoubtedly left with a big mess to clean up as the result of their destructive battle. Carol Danvers as Captain America still seemingly possesses some version of her Kree physiology and 616 power set here, making her a pretty powerful alternate version of Captain America, to be honest. I guess the other alternate name you could give to Carol Danvers Cap is Cap, because she's also Captain Marvel, and then so if she's Captain America, she's like a double cap. This version of Captain America comes from the Exile series where he becomes King of the Vampires in the alternate reality of Earth 3931 during World War II as a result of Baron Blood. Vampire Cap is definitely not a good dude here, likely the most evil of all the monstrous Captain Americas that we see in the multiverse. This version of Captain America has its own sinister version of the Avengers and Thralls, who he enlists and forces to fight for him. However, he still proves to be no match for the Exiles, who end up defeating him and removing his head from his body here in the end, as the Exiles do. This version of Cap comes to us from the Marvel Zombies reality of Earth 2149. So many versions of Cap that are just monsters. Instead of being known as Captain America in this reality, he was actually originally known as Colonel America. Colonel America finds himself turned into a zombie in the initial fight against the Sentry here, near the beginning of this story. From there, his story gets pretty crazy. He is the one responsible for infecting Spider-Man, Peter Parker, with the virus. He also helps to take down Magneto, the Silver Surfer, and Galactus, and is one of the zombies who ends up receiving the power cosmic. He does end up defeated by the horrific zombified Red Skull though, who scoops out his brains. But with his brain not being consumed, as he, was also undead, and the undead apparently taste terrible to other zombies, he would later end up having his brain implanted in the body of Black Panther's deceased son in the future, T'Challa. Yeah, Marvel Zombies, it gets pretty weird. Soldier Supreme is what you get when you combine the mystical powerhouse of Doctor Strange with the all-American war hero Captain America. The result is a character who happens to be tough, strong, fast, and a gifted fighter while also possessing tons of mystical knowledge and ability. Soldier Supreme hails from Warp World, the reality created by Gamora when she folded the universe in half using the power of the Infinity Stones. Here, Steve Rogers participated in the Super Soldier program, which was really a front for something less scientific and more magical in nature. Conducting a series of rituals, Dr. Morgan Erskine transformed Steven Rogers into the Soldier Supreme. Super Soldier hails from the Amalgam universe, stories and characters created using the combined lore of DC Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains, and Marvel Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains. Super Soldier himself is an alternate version created by combining the heroes Captain America from Marvel and Superman from DC. Put those together and you get Clark Kent. Clark Kent ended up in the Super Soldier program during World War II, which used alien DNA taken from a corpse that was discovered to alter Clark Kent permanently, granting him superhuman powers. He has the combined power set of both Cap and Supes, making him pretty crazy powerful, although he also comes with his own highly dangerous villain as well, the Green Skull, and his very own weakness to the ore known as Green K. Not an alternate version of Steve Rogers, but an alternate version of Red Skull, who beat Rogers and took to wearing his suit often enough around his newly redecorated Oval Office. This alternate version of Red Skull comes from the Old Man Logan universe, where Red Skull ends up appointing himself the new president of the United States, which he of course renames America with a K. Red Skull ends up not just defeating Captain America, but almost all of the superhero community when he manages to rally together an impossible to defeat force of supervillains who basically coordinate their attack on the nation. Being that he's Red Skull, he's probably one of the most evil versions of Captain America that we've ever seen, although like I said, he's not really a full Cap alternate really, but he's the closest, albeit most twisted version we have, sadly, after Cap dies in the Old Man Logan universe, and he's it's a pretty cool one to have, because just seeing him in the suit and everything, it's a vibe. It's a messed up vibe, but it's a vibe. Some folks may know Cap Wolf, sure, but how many know the version of him that is stuck as Cap Wolf? For many, Cap Wolf is more of a time in Steven Rogers' life. For Cap Wolf of Earth 666 though, that's his everyday. On Earth 666, the Earth is exclusively inhabited by monsters, supernatural beings, or undead. The normal average living person is not welcome in this reality. Cap Wolf, for his part, has been a part of a few different teams, but has still only made a handful of appearances. He has appeared as a member of the multiversal Howling Commandos and multiversal Avengers team, and he has also been a member of his Earth's own Freaky Avengers team, which of course, because their Earth has like all monsters and undead, that Avengers team is all monsters and undead. An evil clone with the mind of Red Skull. To be honest, this has happened multiple times in the comics, where Red Skull has ended up having his consciousness, personality, or memories put into a clone of Steve Rogers. It's happened both in the main continuity and in alternate universes. It's just a thing that happens, and people think it's interesting, so we keep doing it. In issue number 350 of Captain America, the Red Skull in Steve Rogers' clone body ends up being the mastermind behind the whole Jonathan Walker, aka US agent and commission issue that happened around that time. Red Skull's plan this time around in Steve Rogers' clone body is to discard his previous ideologies and actually use America's capitalist system to dismantle the democracy of the nation and destroy it. It doesn't work out in the end, and the issue actually ends up with him facing off against both John Walker and the Captain, and becoming deformed once more by the red dust of death. We can't let Red Skull win, unless it's an alternate reality. Then maybe. In the Age of X universe, the mutant population becomes feared after an explosion that looks identical to the Phoenix leveled Albany. As a result, mutants were hunted, rounded up, and disposed of. In response to this, the mutant Magneto uses his powers to take several buildings from New York and form his own Fortress X, a sort of safe haven for all mutant kind to flock to, and for them to kind of have a base that they can defend to protect themselves. This led to the creation of a team of non-mutant heroes by General Frank Castle, who were of course led by Captain America to hunt down this resistance of mutants. The team was made up of Captain America, Ghost Rider, who was killed before the actual assault on Fortress X happened, the Hulk, Invisible Woman, this universe's Jessica Drew, known by the codename Redback, and Iron Man, aka Steel Corpse. While the team murdered a lot of mutants, Cap eventually was persuaded to change sides and fight instead to defend the mutants after realizing the error of his ways when he took out Mystique, who it turned out had been actually just attempting to defend mutant children. I mean, yeah. Obviously Cap's gonna be like, wait a minute, maybe I'm fighting on the wrong side here. This version of Steve Rogers is the leader of the Defenders, the last standing heroic group against Apocalypse and his horsemen who have seized control of Earth and turned it into a wasteland of death, following the demise of both Magneto and Professor Xavier. This version of Cap looks like a tank, is much more determined and grim, and fights with Wolverine at his side, armed with a chipped shield and Thor's hammer, and what appears to be a scaled armor version of his suit. And he hails from What If? X-Men Age of Apocalypse.
A lot of Marvel comic readers are aware of the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, created back in the year 2000. It had a pretty lengthy run with Marvel, set in a more true-to-life world and introducing cool versions of characters we already know, or introducing completely new ones like Miles Morales. Now, this world was pretty much destroyed in 2015 thanks to the Secret Wars event, but now a new version of the Ultimate Universe has come into existence, Earth 6160. Very different. This world was created by the evil version of Reed Richards called the Maker from the original Ultimate Universe, who manipulated the world's history. In this alternate universe, it was actually Howard Stark who became Iron Man, and alongside Obadiah Stane, headed Stark Industries and controlled North America. Now, after learning that the world was controlled by a group of supervillains known as the Cabal, Howard turned on them, imprisoning the Maker in a time machine called the Immortus Engine. Unfortunately, this led to the presumed passing of Howard, and so his son, Tony, carried on his footsteps as Iron Lad. In the alternate Earth of the Dark Ages story from 2021, when Earth became threatened by a massively powerful robotic being called the Unmaker, Tony Stark worked alongside with the world's other scientific geniuses to try and protect the Earth. Now, when Doctor Strange sacrificed himself to save the world, it created an EMP that brought down Iron Man's suit technology along with the technology of the rest of the world. This caused Tony to crash and lose part of his leg, but survive. Now, 7 years later, society has rebuilt itself in a world with no electricity, but This is Iron Man. Tony found a way to create a suit that didn't require any electricity to work. Eventually, he began experimenting with alchemy, and while working away, he was recruited by Captain America to liberate Europe from the mutant apocalypse. But it turns out, Cap was actually Mystique in disguise, working with Apocalypse, who then captured and brainwashed Tony along with other geniuses to try and capture the power of the Unmaker. In the incredibly recent Avengers Twilight, the world is under the control of a totalitarian government after an event called H-Day, when Ultron and the Red Hulk launched a brutal attack and wiped out most of the Avengers. Here, the son of Iron Man and the Wasp, James Jimmy Stark, inherited the empire of Stark technology. Having grown up in a society where superheroes had been tarnished by public opinion and being raised by Kyle Jarvis, who was actually a villain in disguise, James's brilliant mind was used to create the surveillance system, Iron Man drones, the armor used by the corrupt police force and the army, as well as the new Avengers. Now eventually, James also makes his own powerful Iron Man armor and uses it to fight Steve Rogers and the other heroes as a pretty capable villain before eventually trying to right his wrongs. In the world of Marvel zombies, known as Earth 2149, Iron Man appears as one of the uninfected heroes in the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, where Nick Fury and other survivors try to plan to save Earth from the virus. Unfortunately, they are attacked and Iron Man is infected and joins the infected zombies. He is among the zombified population left on the Earth to see the Silver Surfer arrive, heralding the arrival of Galactus. These remaining zombies attack Silver Surfer and Iron Man loses his bottom half during the fight. But after Silver Surfer is subdued, Iron Man becomes one of the few to feast on the Silver Surfer and gain a portion of the Surfer's powers, allowing him to fly again. He then thinks of making a machine to combine all the zombies' new cosmic powers to unleash against Galactus. Iron Man, along with the Hulk and Giant Man, build the machine and finally bring him down, but then it's a brawl between different factions of zombies to see who gets to eat Galactus. The heroes easily win and they feed on Galactus, gaining his power. These zombies become the Zombie Galacti, returning to Earth after 40 years of consuming the entire universe, only to find out that there are still survivors on Earth. Eventually, Giant Man realizes that the hunger has actually disappeared for the zombies, and they agree to stop attacking and spare their survivors. Unfortunately, the Hulk still had quite the appetite and he wiped out Iron Man among many others. It seems that being Iron Man runs in the Stark family, and so the Iron Man of the year 2093 is one Andros Stark, a descendant of the Stark line and a direct descendant of Arno Stark. Now, sometime in the future it seems that Iron Man's tech becomes outlawed, but like a true Stark, this does not stop Andros from resurrecting it and using it for his own gains. Yes, Andros is more of a villain. Teaming up with Victor Von Doom, he has set up a weapons platform in Earth's orbit and plans to eliminate the population if their demands are not met. In the present day, a reborn preteen King Arthur, as random as that sounds, orders Merlin to bring the Tony Stark and Dr. Doom of the present to 2093 to save Camelot. Now, when Tony attacks the satellite, he comes face to face with his descendant, Andros. Andros' armor is obviously more sophisticated than Tony's due to the future where it comes from, and Andros makes quick work of Tony. But when Tony comes back for round 2 wielding the blade Excalibur, which is just an awesome sentence, Andros can't handle the smoke. He's defeated. He gets defeated. Now, one of the stranger alternate Iron Mans comes from an equally strange alternate world. Coming to us in Secret Wars 2, as in TOO, not the number 2, from 2015, is the Battleworld domain number 615. Here, every inhabitant of the world is basically Uncle Ben. They all have Uncle Ben's face at the very least. All the women, all the children, everyone. Yes, even Iron Man was just another version of Ben Parker. This Iron Man was a member of the Avengers, alongside Uncle Ben versions of Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Demolition Man. They attacked the Heralds of Galactus of Hell's Kitchen's kitchen domain, who sought to steal the ultimate Wi-Fi, but were tragically defeated by them. Boo. Back in 2008, Marvel put out various stories with the title The End that showed off the last days of various different heroes, and of course, Iron Man got his own story. This version of Tony would go on to marry Bethany Cabe. Now, 50 years into the future, thanks to being Iron Man for so long, Tony began suffering nerve damage and suffering from tremors. He began to focus pretty heavily on the world's first space elevator, and during the initial construction of which, he almost failed to save a worker and a submarine, and he started to question his ongoing effectiveness as Iron Man. Now, after a defeat at the hands of Ultra Dynamo, Tony chose a replacement in the form of Nicholas Travis. Tony was a pretty tough mentor though, and the two had a bit of a falling out before Ultra Dynamo came back for round 2, almost taking Tony's life before Nicholas jumped in and saved the day. Now, with Nick becoming the new Iron Man, Tony and Beth used the space elevator to retire on a space station, which is actually probably the most positive of the end stories that I've read, so just be warned, they're dark. In the far-flung future of the year 3030, the role of Iron Man has fallen to another descendant of Tony Stark named Rhodey Stark. She appeared in Avengers Volume 5, number 24 in December of 2013, traveling back in time to the modern day to warn the Avengers about a rogue planet pulled from its orbit and on a collision course with the Earth. She has one of the cooler looking Iron Man suits that I have ever seen, with much of the same abilities, but added ones as well, like being able to create duplicates of herself. In general, I really hope we get to see more of her character at some point, but it's really hard to say. While she stated that the Avengers would have been able to deal with the rogue planet without her, which they handled by phasing the whole rogue planet, allowing it to coexist with the Earth and saving both worlds at the same time, she actually came to warn Tony that apparently soon everyone he knew would be trying to take him down. After that little ominous foreshadowing, she then faded back into her own timeline, which is super convenient. This next alternate version of Iron Man first appears in Bullet Points number 1, but as a bit of a twist, this is actually Steve Rogers. After Dr. Erskine was assassinated, the Super Soldier Serum program had to be scrapped, and Steve Rogers, still wanting to serve his country, agreed to join a program that saw him medically grafted to a giant suit of Iron Man armor. This suit resembled the first few iterations of the rough and heavy looking Iron Man armor with many of its capabilities. The suit, however, took a huge toll on Steve, who even went through rigorous stamina and strength training just to wear it. Unfortunately, Steve was eventually taken down in the suit when he was sent on a mission to subdue the Hulk, who in this timeline was actually Peter Parker. As you can probably tell, Bullet Points is really interesting, serving up alternate versions of characters in very interesting ways. Check it out if you have the chance, because the art is also pretty amazing. And lastly today, one of the fun things about Tony is that he can very easily be turned into an incredibly ruthless and capable villain. There are a few evil versions of Iron Man, but my favorite one is from Exiles issue 23. This Iron Man brought the whole world to its knees, but had the intelligence to not let them know it, and then the world begged him to take control. This incredibly evil Iron Man from Earth 42777 concocted a massive plan. Tony acquired every world conglomerate, he organized a mutant war against humanity and defeated their leader, Magneto, who he secretly actually supported in order to be held up as a savior. He then created a worldwide famine, the likes of which has never been seen before, and then invented the cures and vaccines to fix it all. All of that to help him get elected president. He then developed weather controlling technologies to cause biblical level natural disasters in Europe and Asia, having them beg for help to the point of giving up their control to Tony. Central America and our very own Canada had economic down spirals that brought them under Tony's control, and then Tony made a deal with Dr. Doom to attack the capital and take out all the other leaders in America. Then Tony turned on Dr. Doom too, receiving a blast to the face that left him disfigured as he took the life of the Latvian ruler. He's even managed to defeat the Hulk. He is a scary dude.
Number 10. Ben Grimm. There are so many excellent alternate versions of Thor to highlight from the Thor Corps, but I decided to go with the version I don't believe I have ever talked about on this channel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I have. We're talking about Benjamin Grimm, who's not just a member of the Thor Corps, Emperor God Doom's enforcers of justice and peace on Battleworld, but is also a member of the Fantastic Thors. That's right, this alternate version of the Fantastic Four all became Thors. Although it's never established established as to how this happened for them. I just think the idea of Ben Grimm becoming Thor is pretty cool. I mean, Ben is already a super strong character, so imagine combining him with the sheer godly power as well of Thor. The Thor core in general are also just insane. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not consider clicking that subscribe button? It's good for us, it's good for you, it's good for everyone. Number 9. Adam Aziz. Like Jane Foster, Adam Aziz became Thor briefly when the hammer presented itself to him. However, he didn't last nearly as long as other mortals have in the role. Definitely not as long as Jane Foster. This is because the hammer presented itself to him when it was broken during Donny Cates' recent Thor run. It wasn't that Adam was worthy, it was that the hammer needed to be fixed. He asked Thor before returning Mjolnir to him if he could use it to fly once high up in the sky like he and the other heroes so often do. Thor gave him permission, and afterwards he returned the hammer, giving Thor some advice on how he might fix it, based on Adam's own experience. The good old IT crowd fix. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Number 8. Ben Parker. If you can believe it, in an alternate reality, there is actually a version of Benjamin Parker, Spider-Man's uncle, who became Thor. This version of Thor and Ben hails from the alternate reality of Earth 615 and makes his first and only appearance in Secret Wars 2, issue number 1. Secret Wars 2 is in TOO, by the way. Here we're introduced to Thor as a member of the Avengers, who are one of the superhero teams from a region of Battle World known as number 615. Here, everyone is actually Ben Parker, so I think you can imagine the Avengers, I mean, they're all Ben. Number 7. Eric Masterson. Okay, so with Thor, there are a lot of other folks who have also had the mantle, but this isn't really the same as someone like, you know, DC's Green Lantern. For that, there are many different Green Lanterns, and then there are alternates of those characters from other realities. For Thor, you know, there's usually only one Thor at a time, which is why I'm letting myself count versions of the character like Eric Masterson who are from the main continuity. Eric for a time was Thor himself, but also existed as Thor in the Earth 616 reality. How was this possible? Well, Eric was just a mortal man, but after becoming involved in Thor's adventures, ended up bonded with the hero after he received a life-threatening injury. In order to save Eric's life, Thor pleaded with Odin to help. Odin helped by merging Thor and Eric together, with them each initially retaining their own separate personalities and forms, but simply sharing a body. Number 6. Thor Machine. Thor Machine was the editorial name given to this alternate. This version of Thor is one you might recognize as War Machine, aka Jim Rhodes, aka Rhodey, Tony Stark's good friend and ally. However, this isn't the Rhodes of Earth 616, the main continuity. This is the Rhodes of Earth 12311, home of Technopolis, and one of the alternate realities that was created when God Emperor Doom rebuilt the multiverse in his image, following the incursions destroying the multiverse we knew previous to Secret Wars, the 2015 Secret Wars, to be clear. Here, Rhodes was known as Grand Marshal Jim Rhodes, the Thor of this reality and an ally to the Baron of this domain, an alternate Tony Stark. Instead of him being an Asgardian god, this version of Thor actually gets his powers from his armor, which resembles the look of Thor's costume and armor. Number 5. Jane Foster. Jane is her own character, but was for a time also Thor. Currently in the comics, she's instead known as Valkyrie right now, but before that, she was granted the powers of Mjolnir after Thor was deemed unworthy and lost his ability to use it. The hammer called to Jane, and she answered the call, becoming Thor, known editorially as Mighty Thor. Eventually, Jane gave up the ability to become Thor in her final fight against Mangog. She sacrificed herself as transforming into Thor was actually killing her. Currently suffering from cancer, the transformation basically wiped clean any of the progress her chemotherapy treatments were making in fighting back against the disease. In the end, Jane bound Mangog in chains intended for Fenris that were attached to Mjolnir and hurled up the hammer into the sun. This destroyed the hammer and seemingly killed Jane, ending her time as the mysterious Lady Thor. Of course, Thor Odinson would not give up, and surprisingly, with Odin's help, was able to revive her, with her passing the mantle of Thor back to Odinson. Number 4. MCU. I mean, can I really do a list like this without talking about Chris Hemsworth's take on the character? I do not think that I can. While Thor Love and Thunder was not exactly the masterpiece we were all hoping it to be for the Thor and Marvel superhero franchise, you can't say that the character development we've seen for Thor has been amazing. By far, Thor has seen some of the most character development among the versions of the heroes we've come to know in the MCU. I would say Thor and Scarlet Witch oddly have seen some of the greatest developments throughout the more than decade we've been watching superhero films and television. Thor went from a reckless god who didn't really feel he belonged on Earth, nor really wanted to be there, to one of Midgard's greatest heroes, to an orphan human and relatively directionless Asgardian to the hero of his people to someone who himself went toe-to-toe with Gore in an attempt to protect not just his people, but all the gods of the universe. That's quite the journey, honestly. Also, he got a haircut, which for Thor, honestly, that's a pretty big deal. Number 3, Loki. A version of Loki who we initially knew as Kid Loki, but who has since become the main Loki in the comics, no longer a kid version of himself currently, was actually once Thor. He took up the mantle during the Marvel Axis event. Now, if you don't know of Axis, it was basically an event where the alignments of many major heroes and villains in the Marvel universe were flipped. For Thor, this meant he became a villain. For Loki, however, this meant he was free of the guilt of his past misdeeds and basically became a straight up hero. It also meant he was deemed worthy to wield Mjolnir, which he did, himself becoming the hero Thor and fighting against his now evil brother Odinson. However, after the alignments of everyone were once more reversed, returning everyone, or almost everyone anyways, back to their old alignments, the guilt crept back in, making Loki feel unworthy and ending his brief time as the hero Thor. Number 2, Ultimate Thor. Ultimate Thor initially seemed to not be Thor at all, but just a human man named Thorleif Gorman, who was deemed delusional. However, in truth, he was actually Thor, and the delusions he would later suffer would actually reveal themselves to in fact be true memories. Claiming to be the Norse god of thunder at first led to him being institutionalized, but later these delusions were in fact confirmed to be his true memories by Dr. Donald Blake, whom Thor actually recognized as the reincarnation of his half-brother Balder. Thor was simply remembering after being exiled for years to Midgard and made to forget. Initially, it was the suit that Thor wore, which was given to him by the Dome, that gave him his powers. But as his memories came back, the power within him was unlocked and returned to him ultimately by Odin so that he might use it to defeat Loki. And he reclaimed his actual powers, not needing the suit to necessarily channel them. Though one of the interesting things is that it's not really fully established in the Ultimate Comics to what extent, even after having his powers returned to him, that he relies on the suit, and to what extent the powers that he displays are actually just innate from within himself. So it's kind of like a combo deal. It's like he has powers, but he's also using the suit. Number 1, Beta Ray Bill. I love when I get to put Bill at number 1. You know, I just think he deserves it. Pretty crazy to think, but Beta Ray Bill was also once technically a Thor alternate. And the origin of him being Thor actually kind of goes all the way back pretty much to his own origin story in the comics. When passing near Earth with his people, the Corbinites, he was intercepted by S.H.I.E.L.D., who sent Thor to investigate. His ship, the Scuttlebutt, classified Thor as a threat, and so Beta Ray Bill went out to fight Thor. Surprisingly, Bill pretty easily won and even was able to claim Mjolnir, becoming himself Thor. Bill claimed he should get to keep the hammer as he won it fair and square in their fight. Odin ended up getting them to battle again to determine who should get to actually keep the hammer. And once more, actually, Bill won that fight. However, ultimately it was decided that Thor would get Mjolnir back and a new hammer instead, known as Stormbreaker, was made for Bill.
We will start things off with Robbie Banner, the Hulk of Earth 138, the Earth where Hobie Brown, aka Spider-Punk, runs around. This Hulk is literally so cool. He looks punk for sure. He's got tattoos and a mohawk and massive chains as a belt. The ripped shorts in this universe seem less of an unfortunate side effect of hulking out and more of a fashion statement. I think he also walks around with a little earbud, so he's really hip. My only critique of this look is that because the mohawk is green, it kind of looks a little bit like grass, but not enough that I really care. Punk Hulk was friends with Spider-Punk and they fought many battles together, defeating the UFOs, Hydra, and the Universal Church of Truth, and Kang the Conglomerator. Punk Hulk is taking some time off from fighting for now, which makes me sad because he is so cool. He first appeared in Edge of Spider-Geddon 1 in 2018. Hulky is a hilarious play on the Archie comics, and you can see him in Marvel Superheroes 103. Marvel artist Terry Austin and writer Roger Stern had a lot of fun with this comic. It was put out right around when Marvel was seriously getting into animation, so these guys decided to try their hand at reimagining the Hulk as popular old-style cartoon characters. Technically, Hulky was the second of the two, but we'll talk about number 1 next. The Hulky cover uses all the elements your typical Archie cover does. Hulky is doing some level of buffoonery in an effort to woo the Veronica of his world, Betty Ross. Betty looks great. She's wearing a stunning pink evening gown and decked out in jewels and fur. Hulky also looks good, a bit mismatched, but you can tell his heart is in it. He has his own version of an Archie sweater with a big R for Robert. He has plaid pants and a polka dot tie. Truly a fashion icon. Hulky heard you're supposed to bring a girl a plant on a date. Usually the choice is flowers. Hulky picked a tree. The squirrel who lived there wasn't too happy about this and can be seen pelting Hulky with nuts. Hulky is from Earth 10,381, and the title for the fake book is Hulky, America's Typically Incredible Teenager. I wouldn't be mad if Marvel actually put this book out. Honestly, I am asking Marvel to not only make Hulky actually happen, but Hulk hair too. He is a parody of Bugs Bunny and just the Looney Tunes in general. From the limited info the fake story cover gives us, we can assume the story would pan out similar to how the story usually goes between Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd, except Elmer is General Ross, and I don't think he's going to win this time. This cover even features Stan Lee doing the iconic "That's all folks" bit, but saying "face front folks." Hulk hair somehow looks scarier to me than actual Hulk. Maybe, I don't know, it's the massive bunny teeth or the fact that the Hulk is covered in fur, which is unsettling, or the long ears, I don't know, but I know I wouldn't mess with him. This isn't even the only time the Hulk has been made into a bunny. There's also Hulk Bunny from Earth 14,094, then a different Hulk Bunny from Earth 8,311, the Spider Hamverse. There's probably more than that I haven't found, but our Hulk hair is from Earth 81,113. And that's all folks, moving on. The Hulk from Earth 9,939 fought back a major disaster in the year 2020. What I think is funny is somehow Marvel predicted the world was going to have a major event happen in the year 2020, but instead of an evil monster coming and making everybody too afraid to fight back, it was a virus that made us all too afraid to go outside. Marvel, you almost had it. Anyway, this Hulk was a member of the X-Saviors. They were a superhero team that swore to protect a specific area from Charnel's drones. Charnel is this evil human cyborg magician that has taken over the Earth. So he is the one that pretty much every hero on Earth is fighting against. When the various hero teams are gathered up by Tony Stark and actually start working together, that is when the tides turn and the good comes out on top. This Hulk seems like he might be closer to Nerd Hulk than regular Hulk. He speaks in full sentences and just seems very in control of himself. Earth 71,612's Bruce Banner wasn't the only person in the room when the Gamma Bomb went off. This Bruce Banner was an employee for Banner Tech Industries, right? He discovered Amadeus Cho was experimenting on pigs with gamma radiation, turning the pigs into big green monsters. Now he just needs to do it to chickens and have some green eggs and ham. So in this space we now have Banner and Cho, and walks another guy, Gabe Jones, to warn them that AIM stole their gamma bombs and was going to launch them at big cities. You know what that means. Hulks everywhere. There is a valiant effort made to stop the explosions. Cho tweaks the bombs so they do not cause a massive explosion, but instead it explodes into a massive cloud of green gas. That green gas causes everyone that inhales it to turn into a Hulk. There is a couple hundred people in the vicinity, minimum. The end of the story features Banner saying Cho saved the world, but who was going to save the world from all the new Hulks? This version of the Hulk appears more vicious than his Earth 616 counterpart. He has fangs and a really long lizard-looking tongue, and he just overall looks scarier. The Hulk once became a gunslinger in the Wild Wild West when he was reimagined to be the two-gun kid of his world. This also happened in a Marvel Superheroes end of the comic Imagine situation, but it's so fun, and I love Cowboys and the color green, so two-gun Hulk had to be acknowledged. I love the implications of Hulk being two-gun kid, because then that means the later version of him that joins the Avengers, because the Hulk can kind of live forever, and I like to think he would still join the Avengers when they are created, but when he does that, everything would be the same, but he has a southern accent and can shoot real well. Wouldn't it be swell if instead of saying Hulk smash on Earth 84,112, he's just saying like Hulk shoot or something? Point is, the Hulk as a cowboy is a great idea, and he wears the cowboy hat well. The Hulk is one of the strongest heroes in the Marvel Universe, but then one day he got extra jacked when he got lizard serum. He became Lizard Hulk. It makes sense, the lizard is green, the Hulk is green, why not put them together? The Hulk of Earth 19,919 has probably an almost identical history to 616 Hulk, but with one change. He was infected with the spider virus. It's the virus that made Peter turn into an actual spider and then molt back into being a human. You were also under the Spider Queen's control when infected. On Earth 616, the virus doesn't affect superpowered people. Earth 19,919 is the Earth where the virus mutated to harm super people. The Spider Queen's influence over the Hulk was broken when he was given the lizard serum and he became lizard-like. He was still green, obviously, but super scaly now and has sharp teeth. He looks like a big iguana. Lizard Hulk was part of the storming of the Queen's castle and eventual defeat of the Spider Queen. All this happens in 2015's Spider Island series. Lizard Hulk isn't the first Hulk to experience something that was supposed to happen to Peter Parker. The Hulk from Marvel's on Earth 200527 is the Spider-Man of his world. Hulk was the one bit by the spider here. It's a short and sweet story, but I do have questions. Hulk is shown as Spider-Man as Hulk. Banner is not involved, so that means the guy running around New York in the Spider-Man costume is a huge Hulk-sized man. Hulk does work for J. Jonah Jameson, like Peter does, and I love that Jameson doesn't realize that the only other person in NYC that is as big and strong as Spider-Man is his employee, the Hulk. It's funny to think about the Hulk getting all the powers Spider-Man does because Hulk is already super strong and powerful, so would he just get stronger? Would the spider bite even do anything with Hulk's healing factor? These are all very important questions. Spider-Hulk was later seen helping alternate universe Spider-Man when they were all working together to defeat the Inheritors. Nerd Hulk of the Ultimate Universe Earth 1610 became a vampire and caused too many problems to count. Ultimate Hulk has a kind of vibe like Nerd Hulk from Avengers Endgame. He's a mix of Banner and Hulk. He was a clone created by Tony Stark's older brother Gregory to have Banner's intelligence and Hulk's strength. This had its advantages and disadvantages. Now the Hulk could think rationally and use his strength for good, but now the Hulk thought rationally. Anger was no longer driving his strength, which meant he was easier to defeat in battle. Nerd Hulk was involved in the fight against Red Skull and the Cosmic Cube. Then he tried to join the Ultimates, but they rejected him. He decided to move to the Big Apple, which also went wrong. He was attacked by vampires. Other versions of Hulk that have been bitten by a vampire will sometimes heal really fast because the gamma radiation can stop the vampire disease. This isn't the case for Nerd Hulk. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that he is not full Hulk, I'm not sure. Nerd Hulk, he is a vampire, he works for the Vampire King, he turned Daredevil into a vampire. Eventually, he becomes the Vampire King and leads a whole vampire army. Captain America was able to fight off the vampire infection of this world and managed to defeat Nerd Hulk and co. when he teleported everyone to a sunny place. Originating from the experimental time that was the 90s is Skulk of Earth 9602. This is the Amalgam universe. It is a combination of 616 and New Earth, so it's a combo of Marvel and DC. Lots of the characters from here are a combo of a Marvel character and a DC character. Skulk is Hulk mixed with Solomon Grundy. Solomon and Hulk, they already look super similar. I would say that Skulk is more Solomon in looks just because he is an all-white and gray color and wears like a similar ripped outfit. Different from 616 Hulk, Skulk appears to have some level of control over when he transforms from Banner to the Skulk. This might be because of Dr. Strange Fate, whom Skulk works with. Dr. Strange Fate helped out Skulk by using his magic to help him control his transformations. In return, Skulk would work with Strange Fate and go on missions for him. Strange Fate instructed Skulk to find the super known as Access and bring him in. Skulk does find him, but he gets away, and from there we just assume that Skulk continues roaming to search for him until that universe is destroyed.